Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us for today's webinar. My name is Sunandini, and I'm the host for this evening. Today, I have with us Ms. Kaustabh Shinde, the Global Expansion Lead at Shopsense Retail Technologies, commonly known as Fynd, and an alum of SDA Bocconi. What intrigues me is this statement: international immersion is a must in B school. So now, being in India, for most of us, IITs and IIMs are the golden ticket to the MBA show. So the question is, are there more things out there that we are not aware of? Can MBA experience get even better? Or is international exposure is just a fancy term in the market? Since our guest here does have an exposure to international style of MBA, we are going to trouble him with all our questions. I'm sorry again, Kaustabh, with all my questions. So I hope you can answer them and we can learn a lot from you. And yeah, so welcome, Kaustabh.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
So let's dig in. I know many might have questions and we are here to answer them as in-depth as possible. So we will be answering them in the last half of the webinar, or maybe in between. We'll see whatever is relevant to the current scenario. Please feel free to ask as many questions as possible in the chat box and we'll address them in sequence. To begin this debate, or let's say the conversation, let's understand our speaker and where he's coming from. Kaustabh, can you just answer the most cliche question of the era? That is, what is an engineer doing in the business side of the market?
Oh yeah, I mean, like I still remember. I don't know, like I think Mr. Our dean at that particular time during my interview had asked this question, right? Being a mechanical engineer with 3 years of work ex, right? Why an MBA and why now, right? I mean, that was a most prudent question at that time. I think after working, I did my mechanical engineering and then did 3 years of stint with a supply chain management company, right? I had a very traditional route in front of me, right? Being an engineer, senior engineer, assistant manager. Go become a general manager after say 15 years or 12 years, right? I mean, that's the window that you usually see in a GET role, right? Traditionally. So, first of all, like anybody you ask, any engineer who wants to do an MBA, right? Always the first objective is going to be a jump in the career ladder, right? That's the first thing. The second thing is definitely a salary hike is what everybody expects, right? So I also went, ahead with that 2-point agenda of saying, okay, these are the things, these are the reason why I want to do this particular management course, right? And then, I got a very, very important, I learned a very important lesson during my interview at Bocconi, right? Where I met one of at that time, our rector and our dean, right? So both of them gave me a complete earful and complete understanding of why a person should do an MBA, right? And it was a very interesting conversation. So the simple logic was that, as an engineer, we look at things from a very, analytical point of view, right? If you want to come out of that particular point of view and understand what all things surround it, right? For example, if I want to analyze a particular problem from a political, social, economical point of view, as an engineer, I still have certain limitations, right? Being a management graduate opens up that domain for me. Right? So to be truthful, after 2 years of doing that course, I can comfortably tell you today of why I wanted to do this is that definitely wanted to analyze problems apart from the engineering point of view with a more management point of view. That is the first thing, I would definitely wanted to do this particular management course. And the second thing then definitely, what followed was, if yes, then, from where do you want to do it, right? How do you want to approach it, right? And then it took me to the next problem of what competitive exams and how to go about it, right? So that is my overall question, answer to that particular question, right? An engineer coming into an MBA, a very, very stereotype journey, to be truthful, but what we take from the journey is very important. Probably it will, I'll unravel it over the next one and a half hours or so.
So the most important thing is, I've read many things about many colleges, MBA schools, these schools basically. And SDA Bocconi stands out in a very different way. I'm not saying it is best in something, but I'm saying it's very unique. And I want to understand from you, because you have studied that, can you explain us this difference between SDA Bocconi versus the different Indian B schools?
For sure. To be truthful, so Nandini, I'll not, try to compare any B schools or anything like that, because every school in itself has its own specialty, right? Few of the, say basically in the top IIMs, basically the course and the course structure and the case study discussions are at a completely different level, right? With respect to Bocconi, I think the biggest thing that stood out in during our time, even today, is the global immersion program. Number one. Second thing is the most important part was the faculty of all the courses taught here in India were from Milan campus, right? That was the second and the most enthralling thing here, to be truthful. So we never at any point of time we never thought that we were out of place, right? Because we were still immersed into that particular program. Whatever structure was being followed in Milan was the same thing was being followed here in India, right? And definitely, with a good GMAT score, my first option. So I had set my mind that I wanted to do an MBA from a European business school, right? So I had top three options like INSEAD, HEC Paris, and Bocconi, right? And after working for 3 years in supply chain, majorly on retail projects, I knew I wanted to do it at least at HEC Paris, again, right, known for fashion and like chem industry, but also Bocconi, right, because it's retail and fashion. It's like the hub of retail and fashion, right? So these were my two top B schools to be opted for. And like based on my work for 3 years, they referred me to say, okay, you can do it from your Indian campus, right? Because average work in case of SDA Bocconi School of Management, Milan, was about 4 to 5 years, right? And to be truthful, I was impatient enough to wait for another 2 years to do an MBA. So, but definitely, it turned out to be an extremely good decision for me. I think when it comes to Bocconi, definitely the first part was the faculty coming in, right, from like the main campus here to teach us the entire coursework. Second was the case study discussions that usually happen in top B schools globally. The similar structure was being followed here at Bocconi, right? We were broken down into groups, and then we had to regroup, and the professor used to take us to the entire case study discussion. People had to participate in, right? Probably some turned out into heated arguments as well, right? About everybody's point of view. So this was a great learning experience to be told. Yeah.
This is very interesting actually, because you said that you did your MBA beforehand, you didn't take 5 to 6 years of experience that you need to go to abroad and do an MBA, but you did it from India Asian Center, and then you got the exposure of Milan, SDA Bocconi, whole learning and teachings. That is interesting, that I didn't know about. What I know is you got a GMAT score of 740. And you also said you were targeting European B schools. So I want to understand what is good in European B schools. And you had a great GMAT score. I've spoken to people, 720 is something which is considered a good to get into Cambridge, Oxford, and these colleges. So can you just tell me why European B schools?
Definitely. So, to be truthful, I as a part of GMAT, right? When you give a GMAT, the first strategy that, you usually learn is elimination, right? You need to eliminate the wrong possibilities, wrong answers in that particular test, right? So definitely for me at that time, I think, any UK based B schools were out of option, because, there was a lot of uncertainty surrounding Brexit, right? Potential Brexit.
Which year was this?
So I started in 2016, right? But the things that already started shaping up from 2015-16 onwards.
Yes.
So I really wanted to stay away from that uncertainty of the Brexit scenario, how it may unravel, right? With respect to USB schools, again, to be truthful, I never gave a thought about applying that, because being an engineer, I either wanted to, sort of do an MBA from a German B school or a French B school or an Italian B school. These were the 3 countries that I had chalked out for myself, right?
But what about India?
Yeah. So in case of India, definitely, only a good B school with respect to GMAT would have been ISB, right? Right. So, but I wanted that particular, ISB is a 1-year program. Against which SDA Bocconi was a 2-year program, right? 1 year here in India, and then 6 months you spend abroad doing internships, live projects, and coursework as well, right? So that is something which really sort of interested me to take up this course with SDA Bocconi.
Got it. So since I've spoken to a lot of people who have done their MBA abroad, and the one thing that I found common is the global networking of a diverse set of people. So they go out there in UK, they get in people from Africa, anywhere, Israel and US and many other places. And that is the diversity that they love and enjoy, and that they can't find in India. So can you tell us if you had the same experience at SDA Bocconi Asia Center?
Definitely yes. I mean, like to be truthful, probably my further batches were more lucky, right?
Right.
Because like during our time, the entire 1 year that we spent here, we did not have any exchange programs students coming in at that time.
Okay.
But I think for the last two bearing the COVID time, I would say
Yeah.
the last 1.5 to 2 years have been really great for the institute,
Mm.
right? Because I have seen every semester a new B school troops coming in, studying with the students here in the Mumbai campus, right? And that's really great because at our time we did our 1 year here in India in Mumbai, and then we did the remaining 6 months and the remaining 8 months here in Milan.
Mm.
Correct. So now what the students are experiencing is that in the first year itself they get 2 to 3 immersion programs with multiple B schools, and then on top of it the Milan campus, right? So
Mm.
that is a great, I would say, a great experience for the people who are studying here, right? That's the number one thing. With respect to my experience, I would say, there are two ways of looking at global immersion, right?
Mm.
One is you go into global immersion with an expectation of understanding different cultures, right? Different people,
Yeah.
right? Who will be studying with you, with whom you will be spending about 4 to 6 hours in a classroom program. You will be doing case studies discussion with them. You will be presenting a capstone project at the end of the course, right? That is the best part of that particular program for sure. But for people who really want to take it to the next step, I think the internships or the live projects that you get to do
Mm.
in a global setup is very, very important, right? Because now what happens is in a traditional classroom program, you get to sit down sort of with a group of students from different geographies. Everybody shares their experience of how a particular industry works in their own country, correct? When you actually go down into the industry with a live project or an internship, you get to implement these learnings from your case study discussions and coursework into your internship or a live project, right? And
Mm.
that is something which closes the loop. Otherwise, we usually end up doing a coursework in the classroom and then it ends there. We don't know where to implement it, how to use it, how to implement, what to do about it, right? So I think the best part about for me that turned out was, apart from the 4 courses that I took up in Milan, I also did about 3 to 4 different internships and live projects with H&M, IKEA,
Mm.
a company in Croatia, right? I mean, that was crazy. They were like, it was really great. Whatever marketing lessons I learned about, say, online marketing, I got to implement it at a company in Croatia, right? With respect to whatever retail, there was a course on the retail management, right? How the store should be operated in a more efficient way. I got to implement it in IKEA and H&M internship, right? So I think whatever you learn, you get to implement. Then that is something becomes a foundation for you, right? You always
Mm.
remember it because you have learned it, implemented it, you have made your mistakes, and that is the best thing about that global immersion program, which I usually recommend to people who ask me, rather than just looking at it. Want to do if you wanted to
Mm.
explore cultures, you as well may take a vacation, right? Rather than doing a course, right? You just go down, visit places, probably sit on a beach or something. But it's always good to study and then
Mm.
implement it. So a course plus a live project actually helps out in global immersion. That is my personal experience.
So the moment you spoke about IKEA, H&M, and Croatia, so now I want to have at least one story from you where you found or learned something crazy. Maybe this
Yeah.
retail example as well. Do you have anything in mind?
Okay, sure. I mean, I think I can probably I can share sort of a small case study about what
Okay.
happened at one of the either H&M or IKEA. I will not name the
Mm.
company, but a very, very interesting thing happened, right? I mean,
Mm.
I think this particular store was located at a very prime location in Milan, right?
Mm.
And I was on the shop floor. I was assisting people in doing the right buying decisions. So I was more of a store staff intern, right?
Mm.
That's where I was. Now, what happened is that in that particular vicinity of about 3 to 5 kilometers, there were another 2 stores of the same time, right? During the period between 20th December to 31st December, usually, which is a sale period in
Mm.
Europe or US countries, right? In US, right? So basically, what the store actually did is, the brand did a fantastic exercise. Right? They actually, completely transferred their 100% inventory to their warehouse before 20th and created a stock out situation in the stores, right? Where
Mm.
people were walking into a store and they wanted a particular product and they were like, I want this particular product. And the store was like, wait for a few days, it will come in stock, right? And then suddenly after 4 or 5 days, they did a great online marketing campaign. First of all, there was a lot of negative publicity that happened on social media
Mm.
and online channels, right? About this particular thing that, the brand is not able to serve the customers and,
Mm.
things are going stock out. And then suddenly after a week, all the three stores were literally flooded with inventory, and the kind of footfall that they received after that particular campaign, right, was crazy. Now this entire negative, publicity that happened turned into a complete positive one, right? So that was a great learning experience for me to understand how even the bigger brands actually experiment with this kind of strategies, right? For a young startup, usually, they would be pretty apprehensive of understanding, oh, I'm still, people don't, people will view this as a negative publicity. They will not buy my products. And it will go on spiraling, right? But I think a bigger company, like when they take such kind of risks and it really works out, it's a great learning experience to be truthful. So I got to actually view this. I was not a part of that project at all, but I got to view the way they, did that entire exercise, pre-planned it for 2 months and then implemented it, right? And it was not an impromptu project at all, right? So it was a great learning experience to be truthful.
Sounds crazy. Do you think it will work in India? It worked in Milan, right?
Yeah, I mean, like, a very tricky question, right? I mean, probably, yeah. Like, I'm really sorry, but I should not be in the place to say this because, right? Because actually, I'm working for Fynd, and Fynd actually solves this kind of use cases for brands, right? So I think if something like this happens in India, trust me, like Fynd would be there to solve this particular problem for the brands. So I'm not
get into
expecting.
Fynd.
Yeah,
We'll get into Fynd soon, and because people won't be able to understand and connect that what is Fynd exactly.
Exactly.
So let's go in timeline. First of all, let's put this in a context and frame it. So you completed your engineering in 2013. You joined Bocconi in 2016, and then you worked at Fynd as the head of regional operations in Singapore. Was this your first job abroad?
Yes, for sure. Like before this, I had done an internship during my, coursework, right? But this was like a proper full-time role, right? And so basically, I started my career at Fynd immediately after Bocconi, right? Very, very, to be truthful, if you look at my LinkedIn profile, right, you look at the posts and everything, so you will understand how passionate I am about Fynd. Probably many people, when I, do a sales pitch about Fynd, they ask, are you one of the co-founders or are you part of a founding team, right? Because that is the passion that probably our founders have installed in each and every one of us, right? So I joined as a product manager, to be truthful, for one of the enterprise products for Fynd, right? And the product really worked in Indian market. And then, we decided to take this particular thing global. And that's when since I was a product manager and I had started it from scratch, I got an opportunity to work on this project for Southeast Asia as a market, correct? And that's when, it was a full-time role based out of Singapore. And that was my first international full-time exposure, as you would call it.
I think in this during this period we have spoken about Fynd a lot. So can you just explain us what Fynd does so that we get to know what it does?
Okay. Interesting. Yeah. So if anybody asks me about Fynd, right? I mean, I tell them a very simple thing, right? Any business in the world, right? Any profit-making business in the world wants to buy or wants to produce things at 100 rupees and sell it at 200 rupees to earn that 100 rupees of profit, right? Now taking the same use case for a retail brand, right? A fashion retail brand, Fynd actually helps them achieve this 100 rupees to 200 rupees selling and that entire profitability that for that particular retail brand as a whole. That is what Fynd enables them using tech, right? Just to give you a very, very small example, today you must be saying a retail brand selling on marketplaces like Amazon, Myntra, Flipkart. Then you would see them selling on their websites, right? And then there is a third channel where they have got a retail store, right? Basically, Fynd works across all these three channels for them and ensuring that they are able to sell more than what they were selling earlier, right? It is using tech, like it could be using marketing, it could be using exposing inventory that they have across all possible locations, right? So anybody who is on this webinar, say for example, if you're sitting in a city like Mumbai or Delhi or Bangalore, and you shop on Myntra for a particular product today, you won't know about Fynd at all, right? But whenever you place an order on Myntra, it would get delivered to you the same day or next day with fulfillment, or the order that you have placed will not now get dispatched from any warehouse across India, but it will get fulfilled from a retail space or a retail mall which is closest to your delivery address, right? So just to give you a very small example, I love Bangalore, right? So I'll give you an example of Bangalore. Say if I'm in Whitefield, say sitting in Whitefield right now, and I place an order on Myntra or anywhere else, the order will get dispatched to me the same day, delivered to me from say Phoenix Market City, Bangalore, as a mall, right? Rather than a traditional warehouse setting where it would get then it will get picked up, then it will get transferred to an airport, then it will come by a flight, it will come to Mumbai, or it will come to a particular location and then delivered to me, which takes about 3 to 5 days, right? So Fynd actually enables retail brands to sell more from the same inventory that they have. Yeah.
Got it. And how did you find? Is this a bad joke?
Okay. That's a very interesting thing, right? I mean, like any B school graduate would understand, right? I mean, everybody looks for day zero when a lot of companies come in and you sit for interviews, you be a part of group discussions, and it's grueling, right? I think I got Fynd before day zero itself, right? Fynd was there at Bocconi before, and they had specific requirements for marketing and product roles, right? And to be truthful, I didn't want to get into marketing. I wanted a specific role which was general management and strategy, right? And what I mean by strategy is not just sitting and preparing flashy plans, but I wanted to execute something on the ground, right? And understand how it works and then sort of iterate it. And I got this interview at Fynd, and I had about 3 interactions. By the second interaction itself, I knew that even if it meant taking a pay cut, I wanted to work there, right? And because great team, to be truthful, I had 2 basic reasons for joining Fynd for me. Definitely the team, right? The founders and the leadership team that I interviewed with. I loved them, they loved me, and it was a perfect vibe check that happened, right? And the second and the most important thing for me was the startup culture where I could go to office in shorts, right? I mean, that is what I clearly wanted. Trust me, I've never bought a formal wear after attending Bocconi, right? Because and I wanted to get into that setup of a startup culture where I wanted to be a part of a small team that was really solving a problem at scale, right? So that's how Fynd happened for me, to be truthful. That was in 2017, in 2018 beginning, before graduating from Bocconi.
Got it. So you worked there, I think, for 1.5 years, and then you came back to India, right? Luckily,
Yes. So
before COVID.
yeah, way before COVID. Actually, we were doing this project in Singapore, and due to unfortunate reasons, we had to scale down that particular project, right?
Okay.
And that is the reason I decided to move back to India. The first point definitely was try to understand if within Fynd I have a different role, right? Because the initial role that I was having here in Fynd Indian context was already, sort of somebody else was already a part of it now. So at that time, Fynd did not have an open position for me, right? And that's the reason I decided to move out of Fynd and look for different pastures. Yeah.
That is actually amazing. You actually left it because you wanted to do some particular thing and you knew what you wanted, and because you didn't find it in Fynd, so you went there and then you came back later.
Yes.
So we have been talking about international immersions. Now, when you came back to India, you have studied international MBA, if the wording is correct. You worked abroad, and then you finally came back to India. Can you narrate an incident concerning this global experience that you got that helped you to work in India?
Okay. This is a very very interesting, like, because I usually find good examples where I would say working in Indian context helped me somewhere globally, right? Because I would say India is a bigger amalgamation of all cultures coming together, right? I mean, today we have got I think a lot of European business leaders are heading a lot of big corporations here in India as well. H&M to name one of them, right? So I think, but if learning from an international context and bringing to India, right? I mean, to be truthful, one thing I would like to say 2 things, right? I mean, to be truthful, first is with respect to, I would say, Southeast Asian context, right? That is my first international experience, right? One thing that I really learned that any management program, right, in general, is not just about a career path change or a career ladder, moving up the career ladder or salary, right? The biggest reason that a person should be doing a management course from a good institute, right, is the alum network, right? It plays a huge role, right? And trust me, like, I had no clue about this. And the moment I landed in, say, Singapore, and I attended my first trade show, right? It was a Retail Asia event in Singapore, and there were close to about 600 to 700 people attending that event over a span of 2 days. You won't believe that it never passed 10 minutes that I met a guy or a girl or any lady or a gentleman that was there, and that person had not done a single retail degree from Bocconi, right? either some of the people had done some kind of MBA or a management in science or some of the other course from Bocconi, and I was literally bumping into people, and then it turned out to be a different conversation altogether, right? Now people were more keen to listen about what Fynd did, about how Fynd could help them solve the retail branch problem that they were working for, right? And then I realized, that probably it's a really small world now, right? Got to really connect with people in that event, and then be part of the alum network there. Be part of some kind of, every week they had some kind of catch-up sessions about some case study sessions that they were doing, right? And got to be a part of that network completely. And then I decided, I'm going to leverage this for sure, right? And then it led me to where I'm today, again working on a global project and trying to leverage the same Bocconi network, right? Probably will reach down there, but I think alum network is the most you can say neglected thing when somebody picks up a management course, right? And that is something which really, so if somebody wants to work in retail or a fashion or say a finance sector, right? Then I think Bocconi's alum network is definitely, superior in terms of that globally, right? Just drop a message to somebody on LinkedIn, and trust me, within 12 hours, you will get a reply saying that, tell me what you need, right? And I'll connect you with the right person if I don't know, what do you really want. So that definitely, sort of helped me. I think that is something which I would love to bring here in Indian context, right? Where, we do have alum network, but these alum networks are limited to, you can say, the top B schools and the top institutes out here, right? And I think like now as the Bocconi Asia Center is well placed to claim that they also have a good alum network to be total. So alum network is something of good learning for me from, say, a global context to Indian context that I could bring.
So actually, it's very beneficial if you want to go to some European country. So there, everybody knows about SDA Bocconi, right?
Yes,
and there you'll find loads of people out there.
Yeah.
And SDA Bocconi has many other different courses other than MBA, right?
Yes.
Correct.
Yeah.
So I was intrigued by this one thing. So you have worked in retail. You did your MBA and then internships also in retail. But then when you came back to India, you actually joined the energy industry, if I'm not wrong.
Yes.
So I want to understand what thought process went out there that you chose in energy EVs from, because you were saying you're very specific about a role at Fynd itself. So how did that change? So can you just explain?
So I think the biggest transition for me happened where, I joined Fynd as a retail tech company, right? But then I was working on projects which were, sort of very critical for the company. And, probably it would take a lot of a founder's bandwidth or a leadership team's bandwidth on that particular project. And they said they wanted that project. It was very essential for the company, but they wanted somebody to head it, right? And then when I realized the power of general management or strategy, right? Where you get into a particular role, you own that particular project, you solve that particular problem, implement that project, and then hand it over to the team and take up a new project, right? Which is in today's context, we usually call it as a founder's office role, or you say, or chief of staff office or something, right? So that, and I got my first, sort of brush with that particular role here at Fynd, right? And then I had a thought, rather than being, I should be industry agnostic and look at this with a different view, right? And that is when actually lithium happened to me. Basically, not an energy sector, I would say. It is more of a mobility sector, right? Where we are talking about EVs particularly. So I thought at that point in time, electric vehicles, India had just come up with their first script of a great EV policy, right? And I just wanted to be a part of that particular sector because it was definitely challenging, right? It was a completely new product coming into the market, where people were not aware. People had their own apprehensions that, EVs will catch fire, or, they will stop running in between when they're traveling in an EV, or, it will not climb the... So this was 2019. Right, when the first policy had just come in, and the adoption had just started, it had just kicked off, right? And traditionally, for any new technology that comes in, right, usually end consumers like you, me, or any of the webinar listeners are pretty apprehensive about it, right? The first adopters are always the companies or the corporates, right? Because they have that particular bandwidth to absorb whatever losses of using that technology, right? So the lithium was dwelling into a perfect segment where they were providing electric vehicles to corporates like, Wipro, you can say Nagaro, like all the top IT companies in India, including TCS, everything. And the main problem that they were solving was corporate employee transportation, right? where people want to come from home to office and office to home, right? All the top companies provide these kind of services to their employees, right? So Lithium wanted to replace that particular fleet of petrol and diesel vehicles with electric vehicles, right? A very niche problem statement, right? And I met with Sanjay Krishnan, who's one of the co-founders there, and really got talking about it, and he loved the energy of the conversation. And again, that I realized one thing very important. This was my second instance, right? When we are talking to a founder or a director or a CEO, right? More than your capability or more than your caliber, everything is definitely tested in multiple rounds, right? But the biggest thing important is the vibe check, right? If you know that you can work with a particular leader, right, it's always best. If you know that, okay, no, like there is some kind of mismatch between me and the founder's vision or his execution plan or the way he conducts business, right, it's better to sort of step back and say, oh, like probably I'm not good fit for this role, right? But I think there was a perfect vibe check with Sanjay in that case, and I decided to move to Bangalore, right? I mean, another great city. So by that time, I was like, my family had declared me officially a nomad person, right? Just moving around cities and places and countries, even before, before the Bocconi happened, right? So I think there was a good thing for me that happened, right? I got to test a different industry, a very similar role again, where I was working on new initiatives and all kind of special projects for Lithium.
Got it.
Yeah.
So it comes down to people always, right? It's always the vibe, always who you can connect to.
Yes.
And finally, I think so this was just a project for...
No. This was a proper full-time employment with them. I was part of the CEO's office. So my task was, again, right, the biggest problem with respect to any mobility segment, right? Whether you take, like, Ola is actually a tech company, like Ola is a tech company, right? But they are also into mobility business. Or Swiggy is again a tech company, right? They're a food tech company. But the core of their business is the riders who are delivering the orders, right? So that's a gig economy. So there were a lot of problems involving gig economy that I was working on, right? How do you retain a driver into your, on your platform? How do you incentivize them? Or is incentivizing the right option? Right? Or what should we be doing? What kind of pay it should be? How do we recruit new drivers? Right? What kind of strategy we need? Because India is such a diverse country. A strategy that may work in Mumbai will never work in Pune, right? Or it will work in Pune, but it will never work in Hyderabad. So for every city, you need to have a different set of people who are solving that problem in that geography. And I think that, again, like I would love to link this with whatever exposure that I had Bocconi in Milan or in Southeast Asia, right? Having worked with multiple cultures way before joining Lithium actually helped me address this problem in a very different way, right? Because now I knew that before going into a particular city, I'm going to face some kind of friction with respect to recruiting drivers, recruiting the team there, right? So I already had a plan in place of how do I want to counter it, right? Since I already interacted with multiple cultures already previously. Okay? So definitely, that particular learning helped me out here in case of India with respect to Lithium, for sure.
So from H&M, IKEA to, Fynd, like places, full retail industry to this EV sector and mobility sector, you again joined Fynd recently, that is in 2022. So I want to understand, did you not enjoy EVs that much, or you were in love with Fynd? And what is the story?
I mean, that's definitely true. Like I'm pretty much vocal about it. I'm definitely in love with Fynd in any place, right? Because I still remember, right? I was based out of Bangalore. I had already moved out of Fynd by that time, and in case of Indian context also, like my role entailed working very closely with a retail store owner, right? A store manager or a store staff that works at a retail store. So I had built a product for that particular stakeholder, right? So on a daily basis, so even today, right, I'm really lucky to tell you that I walk into any mall, any store, I get a minimum 30% discount on any merchandise, right? Because I know the right people there. So that's the best part of
I'm so jealous. Okay.
So, right. So the connection that we had with the retail store owner, right? I mean, like I remember this instance. I was working with Lithium in Bangalore, and in the middle of the day, right, at 12 o'clock or 2 o'clock in the afternoon, I got a call from one of the guys from, I think, Delhi or I think Gurgaon, right? That he had a particular problem with respect to an order that he had placed for his customer, and the customer was very angry, and he was requesting me, please solve this particular problem for me, right? And I was like, I didn't have the guts to tell him that, I'm not no longer working with Fynd. I can't solve this problem for you, right? And that is something which I think, my founders had very deeply ingrained in us that, we should never say no to any customer, right? We should listen to them. So I listened to his problem. he gave his the phone to the customer who had walked into the store. I spoke to that customer as well. Don't worry, we will get this sorted. And the end of the conversation, when the store staff took the phone back, I told him, see, don't worry, we'll solve this particular problem. But I'll do one thing. I'll share your contact number with the right person at Fynd. He will help you address this, right? And then he was like, oh, sir, you're not with Fynd. Well, no, I'm not with Fynd, but not an issue. We will definitely solve this for you, right? And I think this is very, very important, right? Because just because you leave a company doesn't mean, you leave that particular company altogether, right? And that is when I decided that I want to move from Bangalore to Mumbai back. Probably finally I wanted my family to call me their own, being based out of Mumbai. So I thought, when I moved to Mumbai, my first port of call was going to be Fynd, right? Any given day, right? So I reached out to Harsh, who is one of the co-founders at Fynd, and I checked with him, tell me if you have any role for me, would love to work. And he's like, let's work on a global project, right? It was your dream, it was my dream, and let's work on it again. Let's do a different geography this time, right? And then that's how Fynd again happened to me. Being here now, I don't think I'm moving out of Fynd pretty soon for sure. The project is going pretty well.
Yeah, that's what to that. So when I talk to people who work abroad, they always talk about this work-life balance, and I see you're very crazily in love with Fynd. So there are a couple of questions. So the first one is, you worked at Singapore and India. So I wanted to ask you, what is the work-life balance compared to the different companies that you have worked in these two different countries?
For sure. I think in case of Singapore, right, every country entails its own different culture, right? I mean, to be truthful, I don't think it's right comparing Indian culture with Singapore. Every country has their own culture. With respect to India, we have I'll probably talk about it, but in case of Singapore, there was I would say a perfect work-life balance, to be truthful. And what I mean by that, what I want to mean is that people will work from, say, 8 o'clock. They will start usually their day a bit early, right? They will start at 8 o'clock, 8:30, right? And by 5:30, they're done, right? I mean, they will head back home. They will probably just walk home, take a jog, or take a public transport, and they will head back. A set of people will be with their families. Few of the people who are not unmarried or usually bachelors, they will prefer to. I really saw this particular trend in Singapore is where 60% of the bachelors or any of my friends, everybody used to go for a run every evening, right, for 1 hour strictly. I mean, that's like a disciplined way of living, right? And probably then catch up with friends or say catch a game of football or somewhere, right? Trust me, Singapore being such a small country has about 170 odd turfs, right, where you can play football pretty actively. They've got about 2 or 3 cricket stadiums as well. So people were way engrossed into sports, right? So work-life balance in that particular case was pretty great, right? Once this moved out of the office, the work completely switched off, right? It was never a case where I would say a person replying to my email at 8 o'clock in the evening or 9 o'clock at night or say early morning, 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock. Never, right? I mean, never. Strictly between 8 to 5:30, 6 o'clock, people will reply to emails or any official conversation that there is, right? In case of India, I think since India itself is a very competitive market, right? So we it is we have to over promise and even then over deliver as well, right? So I would say definitely somewhere we need to find that work-life balance in case of India. I'm not a huge fan of maintaining a work-life balance, having worked in startups. I love to work probably throughout the week. At Fynd, in my initial role, I've always worked even Saturday and Sundays as well. It's not that my company needed me to. Probably the customers needed me to work every Saturday, Sunday, right? Because every Saturday, Sunday is the highest walk-in at any mall, right? Whether it's here in Indian context or even in the Singapore context, right? So my work usually entailed working heavily on Saturday and Sunday, and then probably taking a day off in middle of the week, right? But I think it is very much necessary. Probably once you move into a different life altogether, start having responsibilities, right? That's when the work-life balance actually starts mattering, right? So I would my advice, if anybody asks me, right, whether irrespective of the geography, right, whether it's Singapore, India, or you're in Europe, right, if you really want to learn a lot, right, in a shorter amount of time, you need to dedicate more amount of time towards that particular thing, right? Assuming that you are not a genius, right? That's it, right? So if you want to work that particular hard, we need to have some kind of compromise on the work-life balance initially, so that you have a better life later, right? So that is how I usually look at it. May seem biased, but that is how my personal experience has been.
No issues. So, this global exposure, is it safe to say that SDA Bocconi was the reason you got this global exposure?
I think, like, to be truthful, yeah. I mean, like, somewhat yes, definitely, right? I mean, like, because one of the reasons why my team, my leadership and my founders decided to send me to Singapore was my alum network, right? Which they identified, but I failed to identify. But they really realized, like, this person will do something better in that particular geography, and that is something which has been helping even me today as well, right? So definitely, right? Like, as the Bocconi turned out to be a very good decision for me to take on the global projects even today, or if tomorrow I'm going to take on a different project, definitely it's going to help me for sure.
Got it. So the thing I love is that after so many years of experience, you're here, you have this choice, people don't get the choice to, if you want to work hard, if you want to work in Singapore or in USA or UK. So you have the choice that, yeah, you chose to work here, work for this many hours to do this. So that is something that I really enjoy and love. And as you said, you are not leaving Fynd. So I'm not going to ask you what is your career plan from now onwards, because we will find you and find for the
For
upcoming
sure, for sure.
future.
No, and like, trust me, even if I'm not working for Fynd, you will see me talking about Fynd in multiple places, right? But even when I was talking to Sanjay in my interview, and like Sanjay was like, do you know that you have brought up Fynd at least 16 times till now? I'm like, dude, you're calculating, like, you're still counting, right? I mean, but even he was appreciating this thing. He's like, this is the kind of culture that I want to set, right?
Yeah.
Because there are only two kind of people who will talk about your company. First is the customers, second is your employees, right?
Yeah.
And it's necessary to respect both of them, right? And trust me, again, this is what I've learned while I was interning at IKEA, right? Very great culture with respect to IKEA only cares about two things, right? NPS, which is Net Promoter Score, which is how customers rate IKEA, right? And then there is eNPS, where how employees rate IKEA, right? So, and that is something which I really learned there. And I learned there, I experienced at Fynd, and I probably sort of propagated at Lithium, right? That's how it has worked out. So definitely, the global immersion has worked out for me well.
Really nice way to stop my questions. I guess I'm done with mine, and I'll pick up my audience's question. So, guys, whoever is watching, you can just put across as many questions as you want. He has seen his expertise. He knows about global exposure. If you want to study abroad, let's just look at the questions now. So, ready, Kaustabh? Should I start?
Yeah.
Great. So the first question is, does SDA Bocconi provide international placement assistance?
So, I'm definitely sure. Like, from my batch itself, I think we had about, at that point, we were pretty nascent stage, right? I think mine was fourth or fifth batch, right? So, still in our batch, we had about 3 international placements at our point in time, right? And I think one of them is still working out there. I think based out of Southeast Asia again, right? So, yes, definitely. In terms of support, there are 2 ways of looking at it, right? One is placements that happened at SDA Bocconi Asia Center here in India, and then there is another. We get an opportunity to participate in job fair that happens in Milan, right? And to be truthful, like this is my regret, right? I mean, like just because I missed out on a very good opportunity of working in Milan, just because I was lazy or procrastinating enough to not learn Italian language, right? I still probably regret about it, right? Because it was really a great company. I got this opportunity during Bocconi job fairs that happens in Milan. I went through about 2 to 3 different round of interviews, and then by the 4th interview, like almost everything was done, right? And there was that this role, it initially was for entire EMEA as a region, Europe, Middle East, and Africa, but then this role was curtailed for European region, right? And then the language constraint came in, and that's where I actually lost on that particular opportunity, right? So definitely, the most important thing of anybody who has asked this question is, if you're targeting a particular geography, learning the language is not mandatory, but it's necessary to have to understand the people and the culture of that particular country, right? Because then you will be able to understand what people around you are conversing. You will be able to absorb as much things as possible, right? So I think definitely, like Bocconi Asia Center will provide, definitely give that particular opportunity, but it purely depends upon us how do we take it, right? I got that opportunity and I completely, sort of screwed it up, right? So I would, like definitely yes to that question, but again, depends on how we take it. That is what I would say.
So Meenakshi is also asking which MBA specialization is best at SDA Bocconi. Is marketing the best? Because she is interested in brand and product management roles.
Wow. I mean, I get this. I completely get this open, right? I mean, trust me, like no hard feelings for any specialization to be truthful. I think like everybody wants to do marketing, right? But when asked why do they want to do marketing, right? That is when people start faltering, right? They're like, no, I don't know, but marketing seems cool, right? Marketing seems like a very people respect marketing, right? I mean, like that's how people usually respond, right? I think it's very important to know that I always recommend people that try to do an internship for 6 months or 1 year, or take a 1 year or 2 years of work ex. Then you will realize where you fit in, right? Because usually when you're a graduate, usually you don't directly get into a marketing role from day one, right? You do sales and you get a bit of glimpse of marketing, right? And then you understand, okay, this is what marketing is, right? Then probably by that time you realize, oh, marketing is not for me, right? I love sales, right? But it could happen like that, or you could say, I love operations bit of it, or you say I'm a people's person, I would love HR, right? So I think marketing, the way we look at it, is not just about taking a brand or a product to people, right? Trust me, the biggest, or the most, I would say, the most, you can say, neglected form of marketing is employee branding, right? Which is huge right now, right? It's been growing since past 2 to 3 years, right? Where basically the HR people are marketing about their own company to potential and existing employees to retain them, right? So that employee branding, it also is a part of marketing, right? I mean, people don't look at it like that. They look at it as an HR function, right? And again, like I don't know why, but if you want to do brand product marketing, definitely Bocconi is the right place. But if you know why you want to do brand or product marketing, right? I'm assuming that you will have some kind of work ex already, and that's why you have come to that fixed date saying, okay, I want to do this. Then definitely, right? Again, which industry do you want to do it? Do you want to do it for a fashion or FMCG industry? Then definitely Bocconi is the right place, right? If you probably want to do it for a software as a service, like I'm from software as a service, right? Probably for me that would not suit well. But for FMCG, fashion, or any consumable good industry, Bocconi would be the right place to do marketing for this particular role.
Got it. So Meenakshi, the person who asked you the question, she actually described her profile. I have 7.5 years of work ex as a business
Wow.
analyst.
Right.
So is it better for me to go for a full-time 2-year MBA, or should I target executive MBA? I'm asking this because SDA has both of these courses and she is an engineer grad.
Perfect. No, I think always taking up that full-time course makes a huge difference. Like I'm not demeaning the executive MBA bit, right? Never. I will never do that. My father has done his executive MBA from Bajaj, right? So I've seen that particular thing, right? Because during executive MBA, I'm assuming you will be working alongside doing your MBA, right? That is what I'm safely assuming right now. So the bandwidth that you get between your work and your the course that you take up, and what kind of participation you will have in the program, is very limited, right? Because apart from this, you also have a third part, that is your own personal life, right? That is all, that also needs to be balanced well, right? So I think either do full-time work or do a full-time program for 2 years, and then reap the benefits after those 2 years, right? Rather than doing a 1 year, 2 year, or 3 year part-time. I would always prefer to do a full-time at this particular point in time. And with the work ex that probably she has, I think she's in a better place than me also, to decide what kind of, if she's saying marketing, she should be doing marketing after 7 years of work ex for sure.
Good. So Meenakshi, I hope that helps your questions. And now we'll move on. Bhavya is asking, does global exposure as a term look very fancy from outside or the other side, but actually isn't?
Okay. Yeah, definitely. I mean, like, to be truthful, like Bhavya, I'll give you my personal example, recent example, I'll tell you, right? I was evaluating a software vendor that I wanted to use this particular software, right? Now, this company is based out of, I think, EMEA. Yeah, it's based out of, I think it's based out of Germany, right? And trust me, when I scheduled a demo call, right, the person who gave me the demo was based out of Australia, right? Now, I'm sitting in India. The sales, we usually call them SDR, right? Sales development representatives, right? In SaaS industry. The person is based out of Australia. Company is from Europe, and I'm sitting in India taking a demo, right? Now, the digital technology has brought the world too close, right? Nowadays, globalization doesn't mean going or traveling to a particular country interacting with people and then, taking that experience and coming back. It's not just limited to that. There are a lot of touch points, right? Now, again, the most important thing is, though global, immersion, right, is a very fancy term. The most important hurdle here is how do we utilize it, right? If I know that like another good example, right? At Lithium, we wanted to partner with in charger infra. There are electric vehicles need fast chargers, right, to charge the vehicles. So now this company was based out of Netherlands. I just went to LinkedIn. I searched for that company. I went to see, okay, which all alums are from Bocconi are working there. I got a connect there. I connected with them, with that person, dropping a simple message that, I'm looking for this kind of chargers. Your company suits this particular requirement. I wanted if you guys also serve Indian subcontinent, right? I literally got a reply within 7 to 8 hours saying that, okay, this is my Indian counterpart, or this is my counterpart based out of, say Sri Lanka, who will actually help you out with this. Right? And I'm still in touch with that person who actually referred me the second person, right? Global immersion is not just limited to what you study, right? It's about how you, first of all, talk to people. Number one, how do you, network with people? And the most important is how do you nurture those relationships, right? If you are good at making friends but not maintaining a friendship, then I don't think the global immersion would be for that particular person, right? Because it's very much necessary to sort of connect with people and then sort of carry forward that network as well, right? Because then the network will start growing, to be truthful. So I think, though it may sound fancy, like evidently or unknowingly, even today you are a part of that global ecosystem, right? Whether you do a course at SDA Bocconi Asia Center or not, right? But being at SDA Bocconi Asia Center will give us that extra additional assured alum network of that Bocconi already has, right? And trust me, right? I still remember a lot of my Bocconi seniors in Milan had come down to IIM Ahmedabad campus to do an exchange program, right? And they shared their own experiences about India, right? And this is what really globalization is about. It's not just about we traveling to a different country. It's about we hosting people from different country at our campus as well, right? So I think, though it may be a far-fetched thing, if utilized well, it turned out really well, not an issue. If we maintain that particular network, if we decide to grow that network with that intent, right, it's very important. If you say that, okay, I need something today, that's why I'm reaching out to you. Trust me, people will never trust that particular person, right? They will probably help you once, but the next time they will never, sort of even think about helping you guys, right? So I think that give and take is very important, and that is what will drive a success from a global immersion program that will be there.
Got it. So Bhavya is asking another question. Did you decide that you want to go to SDA Bocconi, or did you take it up because you did not have any other choice?
Okay, I'll be really, really truthful about this, right? I mean, I applied to 3 business schools. I got rejected at one. I got waitlisted at second, and then SDA Bocconi actually gave me an option of saying, okay, we have an work ex of 4 to 5 years, but we have got a campus in Mumbai where you can actually apply, right? Your profile should perfectly fine, right? And that's how I got introduced to SDA Bocconi Asia Center, to be truthful. By the time I done my admission, I had my second convert as well. But then, I decided that, okay, I wanted to do this particular course here in Mumbai. And then as it is, I'm getting that global exposure, right? And that's the reason. So basically, to answer your question, definitely I got rejected in one of the B schools, but I had 2 options and I decided to go for SDA Bocconi Asia Center, right? That's my story.
HEC was the second option, right? HEC.
Yeah, no, INSEAD, I actually got a converted INSEAD as well. Oh. But HEC Paris, I got a reject, right? A clear cut reject, right? Okay. So, but this is how it panned out for me. To be truthful, I don't want to set a wrong expectations.
But you got into INSEAD. Okay, got it. So Bhavya is asking, how much does it cost to study abroad?
Oh, this is a very interesting question. So I think one of the most important thing, it's very subjective question, right? I mean, I can't give you a number of saying, okay, it will take so many euros or so many dollars to study, something like that, right? I think what will definitely help you plan better is 2 things, right? I can like probably if you take up an SDA Bocconi Asia Center, then you will definitely have Dean scholarship or something that will sort of help you offset your cost of studying abroad, right? There are special scholarships for that. That's the first thing. Second, and the most important thing is setting expectations straight, right? Do you want to go to Milan? Do you want to, apart from Bocconi, whatever course we want to do you want to do any internships? Do you in other countries across Europe? That will entail your travel cost, etc. Right? And do you want to also enjoy a bit? Then that will sort of inflate it a little bit higher, right? But I think more or less it's pretty much sorted, right? I mean, I can't give you a subjective number of saying, okay, this is how much it will take, but I can tell you what it will take to offset it. Is like there are two things. First is definitely performing well in academics here at Bocconi. Unfortunately, I missed out on that particular scholarship, but we had some really brilliant people from our batch who got that particular scholarship, and the entire cost of pursuing course in Milan got offset for them. Right, very deserving people, to be truthful. And second, and the most important thing is doing internships and live projects there, which are paid again, right? So definitely that will sort of help you offset whatever you cost that you may have.
But do you have any estimation, maybe like in lakhs, or how much? Because as we say in IIMA, 20 lakhs, 22 lakhs,
Yeah,
there is
got it.
something, a range there. So I
Correct.
just want to understand how we can relate
See,
to it.
apart from the course fees that may range between say 3 to 3.5 for that particular semester, right? I think I would not, to be truthful, the one thing that I've learned from global immersion, not just the program, but from personal experience as well as a professional, right? We should never calculate in terms of Indian rupees, right? I mean, that is the, trust me, I still remember the very first business plan I gave for Southeast Asia was in Indian rupees, and my founders were like, this will not work. You need to give me in Singapore dollars, right? I mean, I need to understand what I'm going to spend with respect to that particular geography, right? So the very important thing is to understand in terms of euros. I think about say like 3,000, 4,000 euros is something which overall, apart from your coursework, is something which you will need to have over a span of 6 months to take care of almost everything, right? To live a very normal, non-luxury lifestyle, right? But if you want to really party hard or something, and then definitely it will inflate by 10% for every party that you wanted to have. But more or less, I think the biggest thing that you should always take up is an internship or a live project, which will sort of help you take care of a lot of things.
Got it. So our next question is by Adarsh. He's asking why SDA Bocconi and not other Ivy international school.
Okay. I mean, again, like the same thing, right? I really wanted to avoid the US segment altogether, and then UK I didn't want to do it. Yeah. And I was left with these options and then ISB, right? But to be truthful, I think I sort of overlooked ISB completely because at that point of time I was not convinced whether I want to invest into a consultant to write my essays, etc. Right? I was trying to do everything on myself and trying to work also on the other side. So to be truthful, that is the way I took a decision. If you want to take a better decision, then definitely you can go take up a good counseling. But I didn't want to do UK to be specific, and I had a list of specific business schools that I wanted to get into, and that's how I made that particular choice.
Got it. So our last two questions, I'll take these up and then we'll end this webinar. So actually there are some more. Anyways, three questions, last three questions. So the first one is by Priya. She's asking, what is your favorite country out of everywhere that you have been and traveled so far?
Wow, interesting. Like this is very, very interesting thing, right? If I want to talk from a leisure perspective, I think the best country I would say was Croatia for sure. Right, even I was rooting for them for this current World Cup. I did a small internship there, and really nice. Really, we had some really good. I traveled with a group of my peers here at Bocconi, and it was really one of the best times of the entire vacation that we had. Right, with respect to, I would say, professional work ethics and profession, I would any given day choose Singapore over any other country. Right, great standard of living, very disciplined, great you can say economical stability, political stability in the country, and I think it's been there for the last 50 years, and it's going to stay the same over next 100 years or over a century. Right, Singapore has cemented its place perfectly, and I think I would always love to go back there and sort of contribute, right? Because to be truthful, when I was working there, right, as an Indian citizen, I really got a lot of love, care, and really a lot of warmth from that particular country. Like, would love to contribute back. So, professionally speaking, any given day, Singapore, and then definitely followed by India, Indian subcontinent altogether, right? India, Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, all these countries. And with respect to leisure, I think I would any given day pick up Croatia over any other country in the world.
So before I take the last question, Adarsh, is asking what is your GMAT score. So it was 740, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
So we
actually,
discussed
I
it.
every two, I decided, I decided for myself that, I will take. So I'll be really blunt about this. My first GMAT score was 660, right? And that's when I realized that, okay, this is really dismal performance. I did that after, I think, 1 or 2 months of prep. Then I took a structured leave from work, was work from home for a few days, and with a proper plan that I followed for about 1.5 to 2 months, right? By the time I had a score of 740, right? So my recent score that I have is 760. So I'm actually trying to sort of improve it, but like with no objective. I don't want to get into B school anywhere. I don't want to do any course using this thing. But I think GMAT is a very great exam with respect to the data sufficiency questions that are there, logical reasoning. And the most important part was the verbal part of the GMAT, right? Where I literally, in the first attempt that I did at 660, I literally like being an engineer, I was already good at cons, right? But with respect to verbal, I really invested a lot of time over a period of, I think, last 3-4 years into improving verbal score for GMAT, right? And that definitely gives you an edge when you want to work in a global setup, right? Communicating with people. Right? Now, like, it's very easy for me to adopt that. In India, we write email in a certain way, right? We do usually have long emails where people will go through that email, right? With respect to US, when I'm writing an email, it's pretty simple. I just say hi. I tell them why I'm reaching out to them. Done. That's it, right? It's a 3-line email, right? Let's try to compress it, the entire content that we have here, right? I want to explain about Fynd to them in a simple, small email, right? So with American English coming into play, right? It's very easy to adopt to any a particular geography, their own communication styles, everything. If you've done your verbal part of GMAT really well, right? So definitely it helps out eventually.
So Adarsh, she went from 660 to 740, now at 760. So you can also do it if you are looking into that.
For
Now,
sure.
the last question is from Priya again. Can you elaborate on the Milan experience?
Okay, I will break down the Milan experience into 3 parts, right? I mean, first is definitely academics. Second was life projects, internships, and third one was definitely my time with my peers, right? I mean, peers both, right? My peers from who had traveled along with me, and my peers, my friends, and my, you can say, batchmates that I made in Milan. Right? So in terms of academics, we get to choose about 4 courses of our choice, and you can take more than 4, but 4 are graded, right? The remaining courses you can just sit in the classroom and absorb as much as you can, right? And to be truthful, again, my procrastination wala nature kicked in, right? I hardly attended the first 4 courses. Forget about the remaining, right? I mean, but there was one specific course that I made a point that I wanted to be a part of that particular course, whether I want it to be graded or not, right? So it was a course on merger acquisitions, right? Because finance for me overall was a bit of a lacking thing. I wanted to cover it up. But even bigger than that, the professor who was actually teaching that particular course was an accomplished merger acquisition analyst and a consultant, right? So I used to sit in that course. I even attempted that particular course, and surprisingly, I excelled at that particular course than all other 4 courses, right? And it was really great experience for me. So definitely, the course is something which you get to select based on what specialization you want. You want to do finance, marketing, want to do international business, strategy, whatever you want, right? The second part was internships and life projects. So those are sourced to 2 different things. First is, as a part of your coursework, you will be given a life project or like some kind of life project to work on. Internship is something which you reach out to your Bocconi alums. They're out in Milan or any other country in Europe and try to source an internship. Right? You can people are
मुझे
free to
बहुत
reply to your
क्या था
emails.
मेथी के पराठे और आलू
The
वेट
Bocconi
है।
network, alum
उसके बाद हम
network
कुछ
portal is
बाहर
there.
पीने
You can
गए
reach
थे
out to
और
anyone.
मैंने ये ड्रिंक
Right? And that was the second part, right? The third and the most important part was the leisure part, right? With my friends, right? So we had picked up a house, and like I think 6 of us used to stay together, and like it was more of a party place than a place to stay. We had really great times in Milan. We made it a point to travel for at least 5 to 6 days every month that we were there, right? And we had a very long weekend of 10 days or something where we covered about 5 to 6 countries over that particular time, right? And I did a solo trip. I started with a solo trip at Salzburg and then joined them in Budapest, and then went about Europe, ending it in, I think, Amsterdam or something. But again, right? Like, it depends upon how do you use this leisure trip, right? I mean, most of my peers, they wanted to visit different monuments and wanted to explore the country, right? And for me, I was professionally trying to see. I was trying to meet Bocconi alums in that particular city, if anybody I knew, right? And then I had my own group, the project group that I had at Bocconi, with whom I did about 2 to 3 exertions. That was really great. So apart from that, the most important fourth point that I missed out was competitive competitions there in Milan, right? Or competitions there in Europe, right? You get to participate in a lot of corporate competitions when you are on the campus. So I got to participate in Whirlpool Hackathon, right? And I had a team. One of gentlemen was from Singapore, from NUS. One of the guys was from Portugal. The girl was from Israel, and another one was from, I think, one of the African countries, right? And trust me, you won't believe. Out of these 5 people, 4 of them turned up for my wedding here in Mumbai, right? I mean, that's the kind of network and relationship that we want to build with these people, right? And fortunately, when I wanted to explore African market for one of my previous companies, I knew whom I need to reach out to if I needed to understand what are the real pain points of mobility industry in Africa, right? So this is how I think these are the 4 instances I would break down the entire Milan semester into. Definitely made me a better human being, but I think beyond that, I got relationships that I could nurture over a period of time, both professionally and personally. And I think this is something which we should always take from this semester, whether you're doing it at SDA Bocconi Asia Center or you are doing it at some other campus in India or anywhere else. I think this is something which we should be carrying forward, right? Because we tend to overlook all these factors. We just be a part of a coursework. We try to pursue that, the top grade in the class, right? But then we end up missing these case study discussions that happen, post-class case study discussions, and the debates and the arguments that happen, right? And every argument, every debate ends up teaching us, right, of how others are thinking and what are my shortcomings, right? And this is, I think, I took from this particular course. Apart from all the best times, all the partying times, and all the leisure time, all the journeys that we had across Europe, to be truthful. So it was a great experience to be. It was a fulfilling experience to be truthful.
And I love the answer that you gave. It was a full 10 on 10. I
Yeah.
hope Priya got an elaborate answer about the Milan experience. On this note, we are going to end this webinar. Adarsh is asking if we can ask you follow-up questions and connect with you personally. If you want that, you can maybe join him on LinkedIn. Maybe you can connect with him there.
Yeah, but I would just request Sunandi one thing, right? If we can, usually this is a way I usually, whether I have got any interns or anybody who's joining my team, right? I usually always tell them that, whenever you're doing a LinkedIn message or a connection, just don't send a connection, right? Just for the sake of sending it, right? Just put a one-liner of what do you want, what do you expect, right? From me, or probably what I could get from you, right? That is something that would be really interest me, because I literally go through each and every connection of, if they put up any customized message or something. And again, this is something which I have learned from Harsh, who's my co-founder here at Fynd, right? That it's very much necessary to make it personalized, to also, sort of communicate the intent of understanding what a person wants and what I can offer to that person, right? So if they want to send a request, would be more than happy to accept it, provided they have got a very, very, sort of marketing style way of writing a message. That's what I would say. Yeah.
I guess that answers it. Adarsh, you can connect him and please send a note to him personally.
Yeah.
On that note, thank you so much for joining us for this webinar. Thank you so much, Kaustabh. Thank you so much, our audience. And we will see you next time. If you have any questions, you can ping it, comment, or you can directly ask LinkedIn on LinkedIn to Kaustabh, and with a note, side note, please alert. Yeah. So on that note, thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you.